think it's working. Potentially. Find out in a minute. Hey! Oh, thank God for that. All right, guys. Really sorry about that. So it turns out OBS doesn't work for my computer, so I had to install Google Chrome so I could run this as an event. But, you know, I made it. So thanks for sticking with me. I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to live streaming, as I mentioned. Now, thankfully, we can actually do this live stream. So I am going to now figure out how I can share my screen instead of my face, because you guys are probably more interested in Blender than you are looking at me. So I'm going to do a quick screen share. I'm just going to find Blender because I don't want to share the whole screen. It's just too much open on my Mac at the moment. Just find it. Oh gosh, I do have a lot of stuff open. So you know what? It might actually be faster just to share my entire screen and then just switch to Blender. Okay, awesome. Now I can see you guys making comments, so if you want to chat something to me, want to ask me to do something, feel free, go for it. Basically, I'm going to walk you through just some of the new things that we've done in 016, and if you guys want to ask me any questions at the end of that, feel free to. I'm not going to make it too long. All right, so first big change to 016, which you may already notice, is we've made the panel look a bit different. Some of these are really new. This particular item I added in last night, but we'll go through them in short order. So first up, I want to talk about this new part to the rendering panel. So what this is manual load balancing. So a few people asked us for this, and basically what it is, you may already know if you've used Crowdrender before that you've got the ability to automatically adjust the load on each computer. Now you can actually manually do that. And I guess the reason a few people asked me for this is that sometimes the automatic load balancing can go a bit crazy and people just want to see what it's doing and adjust it. So you can now actually do that. And how it works is pretty simple. So I'm just going to mock up something. So I'm going to create a couple of nodes here. Oh, of course, I can't actually see them if I connect them. Never mind, I won't do that. So basically what you would do is when you click this panel, you'd see all the nodes that you're actually connected to, and then if you click manual, then adjust how much of the screen they get. And basically 1 means that node gets all of the screen, and then you can just slide it like this. So you can adjust how much effort each computer has to do. So how much of the total image size is going to render. So if you gave it 1, like I said, it would have to render the entire screen. If you gave it like half, it'll render half the screen, and the other computers will render the rest. So if you've ever found that the load balancer doesn't do what you want it to do, you can now just manually override it. Okay, so the next change is, and this is not final by the way, so if you think something's ugly or you don't like the look of it, yeah, just send a comment through into the chat window. I'd love to know about it before I release it. Basically, this controls the file format compression used to transfer images from each computer. So when each computer renders, it sends an image file, and that image file will be like a little bit of the image because we use tile rendering. And up until most recently, we've been using DreamWorks Animation A Lossy as the default codec. And some people complained to say, actually, we want it to be a lossless codec. And there are lots of ones to choose for, or maybe even just raw. Now, we didn't have any way of letting you control that, so we put this panel in pretty much last night, and we're testing it, and it's working. And you can actually use it to select which compression format you use, and you can actually see the difference. For example, if I go over to, so this is the image file that I've been using to test with, and you can see, actually, that's not the one I was testing. This one is. So this was with a lossy compression format. It's about 86 kilobytes. So I actually rendered just a default cube scene using, I think the one that did 86 kilobytes was this one, PXR24. If I switch it over to none, I do a render. It's just going to be real quick because it's Blender internal. So if I go back now, back to Finder, back to server. Actually, no, I tell a lie. I actually have to add a node first. Let me do that. I have one node that I can connect to. And I will cover the connection again in a minute, because there is a new bit to that, but I just want to have one machine to show you just how this codec works and what effect it has, because it will have an effect on your render time, and I want you all to know how it's going to do that. Okay, so now I can do this, so I'll actually turn off this one. And we're going to render just the basic default cube scene using no compression on the image file. I'll show you what that does, just real quick. You can see already, wow, it took a while to get that image, and this is like transferring across my hard drive. All right, so go. File was created today, 20.7 megabytes for no compression, and this isn't even 1080p. So what I'm trying to sort of, I suppose, get across is when you're rendering, you'll be having these image files which contain a part of the image transferring from all those other computers across your network back to your master computer. If they're all several megabytes in size, that part of the job takes longer. But this allows you to choose between how big the file size is and whether you have any compression on the results before it gets into Blender, goes through the compositor, and comes out. A lot of people asked us to be able to control this so they could select a non-lossy format. So we did. And that's pretty much what it does. Now, that last render I did was using no compression, 20.7 megabytes. I just want to give you an idea of just how much less in size the files are when you choose one of the lossy formats. And we'll also try one of the lossless ones as well, just so you can get an idea for how it performs. See, that was much quicker. There was no mention of even getting the tile. It was that fast. And you can see why. Like, it goes from 20 megabytes to, hang on, let's just refresh that. Okay, that's weird. I suppose the file size is smaller, but it's not telling me it is. It's because I was looking at the wrong folder. Apologies. There you go, 148 kilobytes, which means I should probably do the non one again. So it looks like I was looking at the wrong folder. Ugh. Also, I can see there's a few of you guys watching now. It'd be really cool if you could just say hey in the chat, just let me know you're actually there. And if you've got any questions, that would be awesome. Okay. That render is complete now, and you can see the difference in file size between, I think it was PX24 compression and no compression. That's a huge difference. It's like 100 times bigger. So let's do one of the lossless ones. Let's do just zip. See how much bigger that is. So it's like 124 kilobytes for really small one, which is PXR24. 18 megabytes for nothing. And this one, which is supposedly lossless, 423 kilobytes, which is not bad. That's a hell of a lot better than nearly 20 megabytes. And it's lossless. So, but again, the reason we put this panel here is mainly so that you can make your own choice. We're not going to force you into deciding which panel you're going to use. Sorry, we're not going to force you into a predetermined default compression. Okay, so that deals with how your files are going to be compressed and transferred. Sorry, how the image files are going to be compressed and transferred back to the computer. So this is new. You don't have this in 0.15. The next new thing is you can now control and see render tile sizes and the render device for the local computer. So when it says this machine here, it means the computer you're actually working on. And in 0.15, all you can do is turn off this computer from rendering, and you didn't have any other options. Now you can actually go in and you can set the tile size. So I can set this to 16 by 16. And I only have a CPU in this computer, so I can't change it. But if I did have a GPU, I could change the device that the local computer would run on. Let's actually switch over to cycles just so you can see the difference. So normally this is set to, just turn that off. Normally this is set to 64 by 64. So why don't I just do that? So let's just do a baseline just to prove this is working. Start up, it's going to do its thing, and we've got 135 tiles, which is what you get when you divide this kind of image size up into chunks that are 64 by 64 large. Sorry, my computer's going to sweat a bit here because it's live streaming and rendering. Okay, cool. So that was 135 tiles, and just to prove that it does work. It's something that's a bit more manageable for my computer too. Go to 16 by 16 and render it. Hey, Sammy. Glad the stream finally works, mate. Not as glad as I am. Okay, there you go. 2,040 tiles now as opposed to 135. So that just proves that works. Okay, Steve E. Miller Steve's got a question. Does the hosting computer do the compression? No, it doesn't. What happens is each of the render nodes, which is rendering, when it's finished rendering the image, if you let's just do an example just to make this a bit easier. So when I set zip lossless compression, what this means is that when the other computers that are rendering have finished, they will use zip lossless compression to squash their image down in size before they send it to the host or the master. This kind of helps if you're just doing tests and you've got potentially massive files. Because I just rendered the default cube scene, and using none, like using this compression format, the file chunks can be several megabytes in size. If you've got a fast local network, it might not bother you, but if you're on Wi-Fi or if you've got friends and you're sharing computers over the internet, which people do, then being able to squash this stuff down and reduce the file size makes the rendering thing go faster. Okay. Yes, I've gotten the getting tile thing off. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Maybe just try reposting the question. I'll come back to you, Steve. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay too, which I'm getting used to as being a first-time streamer. Anyway, so I was mentioning that you can control tile size and what device you use. If you had a whole bunch of render devices, they should show up here as well, and you can choose which one you want this computer to render. And obviously, that's just the same as this. In 015, you have the same thing. You can do the same thing here, but we didn't actually have it for the local node. All right, so now we'll move on to, we've changed things a little bit in how you connect to stuff. Not a huge change, but hopefully it's actually going to make things a little bit clearer. Particularly if you've got a lot of computers. My machine took a while to fetch the tiles, so this will help. Yes, that's exactly it, Steve. Yeah, this is definitely going to help if you want to squash your files down a bit more. Although I will say, using DreamWorks Animation A, I don't think you'll get files much smaller than that. Maybe try PXR24. That tends to be a little bit smaller. If you're having trouble with DWA, which is the default one we were using behind the scenes, then you're going to struggle if you use anything else because they're all bigger except for PXR24, at least for the tests I've done. I don't know, maybe test it a little bit. You might find that it varies with what you've actually got in terms of what's in the picture. Anyway, moving back onto connection, we've changed under the hood how connecting to a lot of machines work. So if you used to have tons of nodes and they were all off, pressing connect would take ages because it would take a few seconds for the computer to look at each one individually before it brought up this panel. Now it takes the same amount of time no matter how many nodes you got. We've also made it so that it separates out pretty much nodes which are off and it can't find at all, to nodes which are switched on and they can find. So you can actually see here we've got nodes requiring IP addresses and nodes that are ready to connect. And you can just hit OK, and it will go and connect to the ones that you want it to connect to. How this helps, I guess, is you can very easily sort of see which computers perhaps aren't online. And if you know what the IP address is and Crowdrender just hasn't been able to find it, you can easily put them in and then connect to them that way. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Other things behind scenes we probably want to talk about next. They're a little bit less easy to show just because they are behind the scenes. But one thing I will quickly mention before doing that is user preferences. We've made some changes here, and there is a pretty big one, and I want to go through that now. Other than just cleaning up, we've cleaned up the look of user preferences. We've got everything in its own section now, so hopefully it's a bit easier to read. The zip logs button is now a little bit better because what it does is it will actually save the log with the right title and also the right file extension. And it will say zip logs. It's always said zip logs, but what it actually does now is it puts the file when you hit zip logs on your desktop and actually calls it a zip file and names it after your computer name. So hopefully this is going to be a bit easier. I know there was a few people have been sending us logs, and what we end up getting is blend files because this used to actually save the logs to a blend file because we didn't alter the extension. But we fixed that now. So if you do need to send logs for any reason, use this button. It's much, much easier than trying to find them yourself. Bug reporting still does what it does. I won't mention that. One big thing that we've added, though, and this is a transparency thing for anyone that doesn't like Big Brother or doesn't like people stealing their data. Not that we're doing that. This sends analytics data, but you can turn it off if you don't like sending analytics data. We put this in just as a way to capture errors and warnings that you might not ever actually notice, but are actually a real problem. Lots of software does this, sends its data back to base. We're going to make sure you're all aware of it before you download it, and you can always come in here and just switch it off. But what this does do is it gives us an opportunity to see when things are broken and fix them before you actually notice it. Or if there is an error which causes a crash or a problem like that, hopefully we'll actually be able to get that automatically from you. So basically, this is just typical sending critical error warning messages about stuff in our software that isn't working, because we want to make it better, we want to improve it. And I know a lot of you guys are busy, and I guess we don't really want to rely just on bug reports, because I know that sometimes people, they get a bug and they just go, oh, that was a shame, and they either restart the system, keep going, or they don't use the software anymore because it had a bug in it. And I guess we're just trying to do better at making our software awesome. And this is one way of doing it without causing more burden on the user. But some people just don't like the fact that companies or people that make software have data being sent to them for their system. So that's why we put this option in here. So you can turn it off. And there'll be a bit of a better description too. This is kind of like an early prototype of it. Okay, so that's pretty much the major things. The other improvements we've done in the background have been to the load balancer. I can't really show you those, though, because they're kind of subtle. They do make the load balancer more stable. And I did mention that we've also given you this panel just in case that doesn't happen. So you can manually load balance, and I can actually show you this now. So, if you want to give both of them about the same amount on the screen, you can now do that. And that will make these two computers always render half each. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, the improvements that we've made. We've made some improvements as to how Crowdrender tries to predict the amount of screen to give to each person. So if you want to use the automatic algorithm, we've made some improvements to it. So this is now in automatic mode. And obviously you can't change these now because the computer's doing that. I'll just stick that back into manual for a second. Yeah. So we have made some improvements to the load balancer. It's got a better algorithm. It collects more intelligent data than it did before. That data isn't sent to us, by the way. The analytics is more for just bugs and things that go wrong. The performance data stays on your computer. You can actually look at it if you want to. You can find the files. They're in a file called config, which is in your Crowdrender folder, in your user folder. So if you wanted to see what performance numbers you're recording, you can. Crowdrender monitors the performance of your renders in seconds per pixel sample, and then uses that basically to adjust how much of the screen it gives to each computer. I'll take this moment now to talk a little bit about the beta project, because the beta project is going to pretty much replace the current load balancer with something much newer and much better. It's just taken a while for us to get to this point where we've done all the other things that we wanted to do before jumping off to that. And also, you know, we're fundraising for it as well, which is an ongoing thing. All right, so that's pretty much the load balancer. And the only other things I can talk about really now are fixes. So I don't know if anyone out there uses Linux. You guys might have been a bit frustrated, and apologies for that. Linux has had an issue for, oh gosh, probably since 0.14. So yeah, I think it was introduced in 0.14 when we started making changes. And what happened in Linux is there was basically a stutter in the frame rate when Crowdrender was on. I can't really reproduce it because I'm on a Mac, but that's now fixed. We've actually fixed that. It's been verified with people who actually had the problem. And so 0.16 is finally going to have this fix in it, which is going to stop the stuttering for people that are on Linux. I won't bore you with the technical details, but it was actually quite a saga to get that to work. It actually turned out to be I think either a Linux windowing system or event system issue, and it only showed up in certain revisions of Linux as well. But good news is 0.16 is going to fix all that. All right, that's a very, very quick overview, demo, and just exposition of what we're going to be doing. I might take the next sort of few minutes. Oh, hang on, someone's got a question. I might answer that instead. So Sammy's asking, when you use load balancing, you said that you can set the load amount to half. So is it half of the entire frame, meaning the other nodes will calculate depending on that? Okay, yeah, I'll just take you through it. So exactly right, half is basically this machine will get half the screen and the other machine will get the other half. And you can set this to anything you like. You can set it to 1, which means that this machine will do everything, this machine gets nothing. Or you can set it to any sort of variation between. If you have more machines, basically when you're moving this slider, the other machines adjust automatically, but they're still going to stay with the value that you give them. So where you mentioned, do they automatically load balance? It's not that they're automatically doing it, it's the fact that we've got an algorithm which calculates how much of the screen to give to the rest of the nodes you're not adjusting. So if I give this 0.7, it'll always give this 1.3. 0.8, it'll always give that 1.2. Because this is the area of the screen, or a fraction of the area of the screen, so it's got to add up to 1. Otherwise, if you don't have 1, you're rendering less than the screen, or if you have more than 1, you're rendering more than the image that you need. So it's not really automatic in the sense of the computer's determining how much to give to each machine. You're in control, because you can give this value 1, it will give that 1.9. We just put that adjustment in there so that it will always make sure the entire screen is rendered. Automatic is when you untick this box. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. Sorry if my voice is a bit rough. So when you untick this box, then it's automatic. And with that ticked, you can change these values, but they will totally respect whatever you do, more or less. We can have a go at this now, but cycles render up, so let's just do that. And we should see that one of these computers will finish way ahead of the other one. Yep, there you go. So that one did about 1/10 of the screen, and this one's going to do 5. This one's going to do about, well, the other 90% really. What happened? No worries, Sammy. You're welcome. Okay, Steve's got a question now. What happens if there isn't a tile number that doesn't fit in this? If there is a tile number that doesn't fit in the percentages, does the bigger percentage take more of the data anyway? Sorry, Steve. Let me just read that one more time. What happens if there isn't a tile number that doesn't fit in the percentages? You mean like bigger than 1? Yeah, you can't be bigger than 1. Because I set bounds on it, so it's only going to let you do values between 0 and 1. So I guess, yeah, the whole point of the way we set this up is it should always make sure that... Oh, right, sorry, Steve. So I have a machine with 1060 and another with two 1080 Ti's. So there are 10 tiles. Yeah, keep going. ... If there are 10 tiles. Okay. There are only 2 tiles in this example. Yeah. Okay, keep going with your question, mate. I'll wait for you. I said one at 30% and the other at 70. Okay, let's do that. Yep. Just wondering if... I'll just set this going, we'll see what that does. Yeah, it is kind of tricky. Like I said, talking about the load balancer and stuff, it's a bit abstract, so it can be quite hard to demonstrate. I'm just going to show you and talk you through what 30 and 70 looks like as per your example. So there's only actually 2, let's just call them 2 strips. One strip is given to one machine and it divides it up into render tiles and tries to complete it. And the other machine, poor little bugger, it gets 70% of the entire image and it breaks it up into render tiles and it renders it. So I guess maybe the misunderstanding comes from the fact that when Crowdrender is load balancing, it basically breaks up the screen into discrete chunks, which then get given to each computer, and then that computer will then use its render tile size to render it. So when we're talking about tiles, that's a Blender setting. When we're talking about these sizes, that's a Crowdrender thing. So when I just rendered that then, let's go back to cycles. Yeah, GPUs. That's actually a good question. I'm glad you asked that one. GPUs do have much larger tile sizes. Having said that, even if you do set a tile size that's larger than the dimensions of one of these, it still completes. It just may not be optimal, but it still works. Basically, because I think Blender's smart enough to know, even though the render tile size might overlap the boundaries of that region, then it can still figure out how to resolve that and still render. Essentially, think of it like this. When you go into camera mode and you shift B and you select border render like that, that's pretty much what Crowdrender is doing. It's giving a portion of the screen to each computer. So hopefully that helps you understand. So if I was to basically manually do what I've got here, it's going to be a bit difficult because I'm not a computer, so I can't do it totally accurately. I would say that's about a third. I give that to, who would I give that to? Jimbo's Mackie Pro. And then the rest of it, I have to be very careful here that I actually get it bang on. That would be done by this computer. And obviously, if you've got more computers, you get sort of thinner and thinner slices. And when you're rendering, you'll actually see this sometimes. But the load balancer now, you can actually do this manual thing where it will always do what you tell it to do. It will not do crazy things like, I don't know, you might have come across a situation where you get one computer does this stupidly tiny amount, and then the other computer will do a very large amount. That's actually a phenomenon we've recently noticed can happen because when you start to render smaller and smaller regions like this, oops, let's try not to, dang it. Yeah, when you get very small strips like this, the number of pixels in here is quite small. And there's a bit of overhead when you render each pixel, and what happens is the time of seconds per pixel, although it should be the same for that computer, no matter how many pixels it renders, starts to go up, and that throws our load balancer off. We're trying to figure out a way around that, and that's probably going to come in the beta. But for now, if you do find that you've got a skinny little bit here, and then the rest of the computer is rendering, your other poor computer's doing all the work, you can easily now just come in here and just go, actually, no, they're both the same speed. So if they're both the same speed, I'll give them, whoops, the same amount. I'll try to give them the same amount. Oh, I know what I've done. I futzed it because I put border on. Don't support border yet. Let me clear that. There we go. Okay, Sammy's got another question. With new per node settings available, do you plan to use the CPU GPU feature when the daily build? Would be great. As in plan, I think I plan to look at it. I'm not sure if we actually have to do anything to get it to work. It may already be working. Depends, I have to look into it. I might see if I can grab a daily build today, and I'll get back to you soon, because I think it'd be awesome too. The only problem I have, and if anyone out there has an old GPU that still works with Blender and doesn't mind donating to us, I'll pay for shipping. It's just because we don't have any, all our GPUs are too old now, and they're no longer supported, so we can't actually use them to do visualizations and render. But I am in a lab today where I've got multiple GPU machines, so I think I'll check that out today and just see if it does work out the box. Because a few things have surprised us as working out the box. I'll just say a few quick things about Blender 2.8 in a minute, but one of the things that did work there was distributed Eevee renders. You need a what unit? Steve's asking, you need a what unit? Yeah, it's probably a bit of a cheeky thing to ask for, but yeah, we have no GPUs at Crowdrender at the moment that work. They're all too old because they're all Radeon cards, and they stopped being supported, I think, in 2.7 something. Can't remember. Yeah. But yeah, I will have a look at CPU GPU feature and see if that works with the current build, and if not, what we'll have to do to get that to work. Because you're right, that would be awesome. And I've got a lab full of computers where I could make use of that myself. So I'm going to definitely add that to the to-do list of things in the lab today. One thing I will sort of briefly mention before we finish the stream, or before people start barraging me with more questions, I'm just going to talk about Blender 2.8, because a few people have asked me, so I get a few emails about it. Essentially, we've got a build that supports it. Yeah, no worries, Steve. Yeah, it does. We've got a build that supports 2.8 right now. It's just not in a place where we can release it. You might have seen on our YouTube channel, we've got a few videos of us actually demonstrating it working, demonstrating it doing distributed Eevee renders, which is really cool. Not really sure if they're going to be a huge amount faster, because it depends a lot on just the setup time versus the render time. And as we all know, Eevee's going to be pretty damn quick on render time. But mainly 2.8 is working. The reason we're not releasing it just yet is because we just have to do so much more testing, plus all of the uncertainty around things that they might still change. Even while we've had it working, we've had things change on us in the 2.8 alpha, which is currently out, that have broken the add-on. So we're just a little bit unsure at the moment as to whether we should release it or not. If we did, it would certainly be released with a big sticker on the front saying, use at your own risk. Probably the same as Blender 2.8 alpha itself, right? They tell you if you're going to use it, don't use it in production, and whatever you do, do not save a file with it that you use in production either, because it's going to screw it for 2.79. But that said, we're feeling pretty confident that when the beta comes out, our add-on should come out like really quickly after it, because we've been working a lot with the alpha to try and get it basically ready. But if they change stuff between now and the beta coming out, then it's probably going to break more things, because they haven't really finished the API yet, the Python API, which is what we use. So I guess that's where we are with Blend 2.8. We're going to do lots more demos. And I guess the only last thing to talk about is the beta project, which is still an ongoing thing. Many of you might have seen that we had a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo, which we then moved to our own website because we ran out of time. We didn't raise the enormous amount of money that we hoped we would. So we put it on our website, and we're slowly raising funds there, which is kind of cool. It hasn't stopped. It hasn't gone anywhere. What's going to happen with the beta is we broke it up into smaller pieces. So we're currently trying to raise just 10,000. Original goal was 50. And if we get to 10, we'll basically do it again and just keep raising cash for each feature that we want to build. So that's the new approach we've taken. You can check it out. It's all on our website. We've got a link to the crowdfunding section now on the homepage, so hopefully it's easy for you to find it. Might be interesting for you guys to see what we're going to do, because we're looking 5, 10 years into the future with that beta project as to what we want to be able to do with distributed rendering. So it's going to be pretty cool. The main sort of focus of the beta campaign is around just being able to easily access computers anywhere, whether they're at home, whether they're at the office, or in the cloud. And we are working on a cloud service that's also under development. That's going to let you access Amazon Web Services. Obviously, you've got to pay for those because Amazon doesn't give their computing out for free. But eventually, the aim of the beta is that you'd be able to get computing power from almost anywhere, which would be kind of great. You can get your friends to volunteer their computers to help you render, team up with other artists, share power, and if that's not enough, you can always boost it with AWS if you need to, because you've got a deadline. So yeah, that's kind of where we're heading to. In the meantime, we're going to keep doing little updates as people find stuff that they want us to focus on. So this whole compression format panel basically came together last night between the hours of 11 and 11:30 because I got an email from a cool guy called Anton Raves. He basically said, you actually said you were going to do this. And he held me to account, and I basically said, you know what, you're right. You did actually say that I did actually say I would do it. And it's pretty much working. So thanks to Anton for prodding me. And this is going to be the 016 test build. So I guess the next thing is just to talk about dates before I finish up. What we're going to do next is turn this into a build that you can get your hands on. And you can test it, try it out. If you want to be part of the testing crew, just email us, info@crowdrender.com.au if you're not already a part of the testing crew. You'll get it first. That is a blessing in some ways. It's also a bit of extra work in others because you might find that there are problems with it, in which case that's part of what the testing crew do. They tell us about problems that we might not have seen, and then we get to fix them before we actually release it on everyone else. So if you do want to be part of alpha testing, that's, it helps us and it helps others. And you do get first look at it, and you also get to, give us your opinion about it. Okay, so you can expect alpha to be going out to testers probably either next week or the week after, because it's pretty much ready. And then a couple of weeks later, it probably should come out after that. So about 4 weeks, because we need to have time for everyone to test it. Okay, guys, unless anyone wants to shoot through a final question, that's pretty much the stream done. I don't want this to be too long. It's got to go up on YouTube. And I don't want to waffle on and on, boring people. Plus, I've got a bit of a cold, so I need to rest my voice. But we are going to do more streams like this. If you do like this kind of format of us demonstrating things and you commenting on it, then, you know, like the video, share it around a bit, and comment that you like this sort of thing, because it encourages us to keep doing it. More people subscribing and telling us we're doing a good job keeps us motivated to keep working on the project and pushing it forward. Okay, guys, I don't see any other questions, so I reckon I'm going to end the stream pretty much now. So thanks, guys. Thanks so much for turning up. Thanks to Steve and Sammy for all your questions. You guys were awesome. Kept it real. And oh my gosh, I've gone into some kind of infinite loop. Cheers and thank you. Thank you, Steve. Awesome, guys. We'll catch you next time. I'll send out another email shout out when the next stream is going to happen. Thanks, everyone. Bye.